In the exact same way as another forthcoming product review, which I'm going to be doing on the channel, this was an occasion where I specifically was looking for the best option to get a particular aspect of my Rolls project done. In the case of the other video, which will be out in probably the next few weeks on the channel, called Genelite, I was looking for which way is the best to prepare and seal and rust protect the underneath of the car. And once it's out, there'll be a link to it in the description. For now though, I also needed to take care of the interior, and you'll probably have already seen in the video why. This is a 50-plus-year-old car from 1973. It's a Rolls Silver Shadow. Of course, I wanted to keep most of the original interior, but it's had tools on the seats, it's had grease and oil and general dirt, and in particular that driver's seat was going to be the big challenge. So I went to a website called Classic and Sports Car, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, and they ranked a whole bunch of leather cleaning products. This one was number one, so I thought, you know what, why bother with anything else, just go for the best one. And now, having used it, not only am I going to run through how to use it, I'm going to spoil it already by saying this is one of the easiest recommendations I've ever made. For full exposure, I did reach out to the company to ask them to review the product. However, I made it very clear I both did not want to be paid and also did not mention even having any kind of discount code or kickback for anyone who uses a code and all that kind of rubbish. I wanted this to be 100% above board so that if I do recommend it, you know, as with all of my recommendations, it's actually real. In the case of this one, I was most keen to clean the leather itself, which is what you'll see first with that kind of, I would call like a goldish, maybe amberish kind of hued liquid, which is the cleaning solution, and then the hand cream looking stuff, which essentially is skin cream, just for skin that happens to be dead inside of a car. Then that one was kind of by the by, but ended up being a fantastic complement to the cleaner, which is probably why, of course, they would sell it together. And it also comes with the spray nozzle already. You won't need that for the cream side of things if you do decide to use it. Given the vehicle, and anyone who knows the project knows how crazy it is, it has like a rally vibe to it anyway, so the weathered classic look didn't bother me. Now, the general idea is very simple. You need to clean the seat first with like a wipe off or a quick hoover out to get any bits off of the chair, because obviously you don't want to be pushing grit around on the leather. The second thing you'll want to do is then just spray down the chair. I would recommend leaving it, and I believe they recommend this too, and they have plenty of their own videos, leaving it for a few seconds, maybe like 30 seconds or so. Give it a spray, allow it to start to work into the chair. It is water-based, incidentally, not alcohol-based. And then just start to swirl motion or scrub in whatever way you want to the cleaning solution into the chair. You basically instantly start to see the difference. Part of the reason why you'll see that I didn't get a perfect finish from the chair is because as I started to wipe it down using kitchen towels, paper wipes if you will, and some would use a cloth, some would use that, I decided I didn't want to push the dirt around using a cloth, so I instead decided to use the more absorbent stuff, which is why I went for that. I started to notice that some of the colour itself was starting to come out of the chair. Now, I believe that's probably because of two things. One, that the cleaning solution is really good, and two, because I was probably scrubbing a bit harder than I realistically needed to. That would indicate that this definitely does the job in terms of getting every last speck, if you will, of oil or dirt or anything out to it. It does show, though, how good of a job the cleaner does, which is why I decided not to give it a second coat, if you will, of cleaner. I thought that one was enough. I'd really scrubbed it pretty thoroughly, got most of the oil out to the point where I was more than happy with it, and I didn't want to take, you know, the rest of the tan out of the seat, if you will, and that will be very much a case-by-case basis on your own car. If it's, you know, really bad like mine, or if it's something much more minor, you'll see as I work on the rear seats in the vehicle that those are nowhere near as bad, and it still has fantastic results. Just like, you know, oily fingerprints, that kind of stuff over time. The kind of thing that can easily happen in a car, especially if you have lighter coloured leather. Then you move on to, obviously, the cream side, which, as I said, is kind of the skin cream, if you will, for the seat. And this one, what I like about it is it depends how you use it. So if you go very light, one coat, rub it in fairly gingerly, fairly quickly, without too much of the cream. I mean, you can see toward the end that I didn't use anywhere near a bottle, and obviously there was plenty more still to do, but even then, barely even touched the litres worth of either of these things. You get more of a matte finish, which is what I wanted, especially in conjunction with the leather being lighter in tone now. I didn't want a shiny, kind of plastic coated looking seat, which you could have if you want to go that far by adding multiple coats and working more of it in. So as I said just now, I personally really like the fact that you can use the exact same product to have a wildly different result depending on how many times you use it and how much of it you want to use. In particular, if it's a vehicle which, as I would assume, mine probably hadn't been taken particularly good care of over the previous decades, and that will probably be a factor as well if the seats have tried to dry out, if you will, as a leather will often try to do. In the case of mine, it definitely needed that kind of hardness to get the oil out. For most of you, you probably won't be as bad as this. The second thing I will say is that when it comes to the cream layer, make sure you really have wiped down the seat before you start to do the cream, because I noticed when I was doing it that there were still a few slightly off-colour streaks as I was pushing the cream around, and I think it's because although I wiped off most of the previous wetness, if you will, I hadn't quite got all of it. What I may even recommend, to be honest, is going over it with something absorbent, blue towels, kitchen towels like I was using here. Maybe go over it with a cloth after as well to get that last level of dryness and just clear everything off. Then go into the cream layer. It does exactly what you would want it to do. You can use the cleaner as much or as little as you need to, scrub it in as hard or as light as you need to, and then use as much or as little cream as you need to. They do more layers than this. They do long-term protection as well, but as I said when I reached out to them, I was really mostly just looking to clean up the seats a bit, and then the protection is more of an afterthought. Obviously, it's an important thing, but I was really curious to see what this very acclaimed cleaner could do in like a worst-case scenario, which I think you could probably consider my driver's seat to be, particularly when you look at the before and after shots. And incidentally, I ended up trying it on a pair of my white leather shoes, and it was great on them as well. So it's multi-purpose. It works on basically any leather, it seems. And the final cherry on the cake, to go back to the Genelite thing, which I said about the underbody repair, I really like the fact that when so many things are outsourced these days, this is a British brand making a British product, and of course using it on a British car is just a bonus, but I like to support a British brand, and especially when it is the best in the business. Ultimately, that's it for my thoughts and an easy recommendation for the leather repair company. Like I said, I will put a link to the Genelite video coming up in future, and of course to their website where you can check out the products. And if you don't believe me, of course, check out places like Classic and Sports Car, because these guys are multi-award winning for a reason. That's it for this review. Of course, I'll see you in future with more, and thanks for watching.